Hi folks, Florida Man here. Today it's my pleasure to bring you a long diplomacy commentary that one of my patrons and I recorded on a game we played together. So a special thanks to King of Prussia for participating in this video with me. This video is part 2. Enjoy! Anyway, the build phase sees me get an army and a fleet. I'm happy about that. I'm planning on expanding my involvement in your fight with Oman, because now that I can smell victory, I want more of it.
Yep. And I'm excited to have you because I want Oman gone as quickly as possible. Because this is about where I'm starting to think, hey, I could solo if I expand quick enough.
It's true. You could.
I'm searching for that.
And I'm hoping that I will be the useful partner to you who is helping you get close but not quite achieve that result.
Who doesn't get stabbed.
Yes, the useful partner who doesn't get stabbed.
Yes.
The power of positive thinking.
And at this point, I've kind of thrown Najd out the window.
Poor Najd.
But I didn't do it with Oman. You can see this was a season where I was very, very mean to Oman. I told him that I thought that Qing and Persia were an existential threat, and I coordinated with Russia and told him the same thing. So this is the season where Oman believes everything I say and moves all of his units that he can east, except for where I told him I'd give him back one of his centers and, all that. So I just walk in for free to Riyadh. I walk into BOS. I set up to take ASM in the fall. I set up to take Qatar in the fall. And I don't accept his support into AFI. But this is also about where I stopped telling Najd how to move his unit because I'm about to toss him back. I don't need that anymore either.
Yeah, this is a hardcore season. This is really getting rid of the throwing him overboard completely.
Yeah.
And of course, I'm ready to try and help you as much as I can. That's why I'm transforming my unit in True into an army. So get deeper into Omani territory. But I'm also in the process of trying to help Qing against Russia, and Russia is kind of defending himself, but Qing and I have him kind of outnumbered and surrounded, so it doesn't look very good for him either.
Yeah.
So in this season, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of conflict. It's mostly I think it's mostly against Russia in the north and against Oman in the south. I mean, you were finishing off Najd, unfortunately for him.
I think he saw that one coming. He did. He told me in our press that he was celebrating on the wall.
Yeah, I'm sure he realized that at this point he had outlived his usefulness.
Yeah.
Which is always a dangerous spot to be in diplomacy.
Indeed. And
in the east, Qing and I were allied against Russia because there's been so many swaps.
The alliances in this game were not particularly stable.
No.
In the east they weren't. In the west, it was relatively stable, insofar as I didn't really ever have any actual allies, except for you and occasionally Russia.
I think that's a fair way of describing it. I mean, we got Oman and Najd to fighting.
Yeah.
It was very bad for both of them, unfortunately. Yeah. It was not a good result for either of them, but it worked out pretty well for you and me.
Yeah, it went pretty well. So right here, we can, I guess, explain the decision we came to with Oman, is I promised that you would, in the long run, keep True, MSC, and Sol. I would keep Qatar, Riyadh, Afi, and San, and we would DMZ, Yem, KHL, and the Persian Gulf.
Yeah, I think that could have theoretically been a good basis for split.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if either of us would have ultimately kept to it in the long run and then just concluded a draw singing Kumbaya together, but
I probably not, but worked in the moment.
Yeah, it was a good basis for cooperation at the time.
Yeah.
especially because you were willing to be flexible and let me have Qatar for now.
Yeah, I let you have Qatar early because I was like, yeah, you probably need to make sure that Qing isn't just going to roll you over.
Yeah, which felt like it was constantly a danger.
Mm-hmm.
And this season, of course, sees me as under at least as much threat as I've ever been from Russia, so can't exactly become independent of Qing right now either.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a dangerous place for you to be in. I think the only thing that kept Qing from stabbing you was that if he stabs you, then there's a very real possibility that I solo as a result of that. Which, yeah.
I think that's a powerful motivator, though, so...
Yeah.
I do find myself using that motivation more than I would like. You know, one hopes that one can rely on one's charm and good nature and reasonable arguments, and then it ultimately comes down to, well...
If you do this, I'm bringing you down with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See here, yeah, so in the Tangle in the East, because of Qing's help, ultimately I get to destroy that Russian unit in Ash, and with the gains of Qatar and MSC, I get some builds, so that's pretty...
You get 3 builds. Well, 2 builds.
Places to put them, but yeah.
Suffering from success.
I can't complain. I mean, you're also doing quite well here with...
Oh, I'm having a great time. I get 3 builds myself.
Yeah, and Qing, or not Qing, Russia has even moved Armenia away from your centers, so Russia would have a hard time directly threatening you now. I don't know if you even asked for that.
I didn't, but it was very well timed. So what happened, because we discussed later on, is that him having a fleet in Sevastopol army in Armenia he was going to try to cut me down as soon as it became clear that I was going to win over Oman and Najd and become a huge power. Unfortunately for him, as soon as I started to do that, he was assaulted by both of his eastern neighbors and no longer could afford to keep the knife hanging over my head.
Yeah, the Russian player was good in this game. I just think he kept suffering misfortunes at critical moments.
Yeah.
And Russia's also, I think Russia's also a good position in this game. It's just like...
It is. It's. I think that as Russia, you probably naturally want to kill the Ottomans first. So the fact that I was able to convince him that was a bad idea for so long is quite beneficial for me in my position.
Yeah, I think you're right, because if you're Russia, like getting into Bulgaria and Khan, I think it could be very important to your... First of all, you're securing a whole corner of the map that way.
Yeah.
Always nice. And it's also, you get into the Med, you have the key to expansion in all directions.
Yeah, you can pretty much ignore the East if you really want to and just become similar to what I did this game, but plus Russia centers.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I built Fleet Khan, Army Jerusalem, Fleet South Coast Cairo. So the plan generally for me is to fan out a bunch of fleets across the Indian Ocean and take the general fleet supremacy in the Indian Ocean, and that way, if I ever had the need to, say I was stabbed by my Persian ally, I'd be able to apply adequate pressure to your new holdings in Arabia. And I was also eyeing Russia's centers, but I didn't think now was the right moment to drive the knife in, because he was still serving the purpose of being annoying for you two and keeping that enormous, massive armies away from me.
Yeah, I think I was I trying to get you to go in on Russia at this point?
I think you had been for a little bit, and I was kind of helping with Alb and trying to cut support of Waz, which I think was a mistake on my part, honestly, at that point. It was unnecessarily an alienated Russia to me, where if I hadn't done that, he might have trusted me a little bit more.
I think that you might be right. I think that this might have been a good time to stab me, which is a weird thing for me to say.
But, yeah, this was approximately where I made... I think if you go forward a little bit, you can explain your moves first, but after you go forward, I can explain the key mistake I'm about to make.
Well, I got 2 armies because there's a land-based enemy to the north of me. Well, maybe one of those should have been a fleet, but there's a large...
Well, if you built a fleet, I would have stabbed you now, so...
Yeah, maybe that's why I didn't. There's an enemy to the north of me who I can attack over land, so I built armies, and also because I am a little bit threatened by you, to be honest.
Yeah.
I'm aware that you're a threat here. Tell me about the mistakes you make.
Yes, so I moved Khan into Black Sea, and I moved Jerusalem to Smyrna, and at this point, I'm trying to do what Russia did to me, in all honesty. I'm trying to sit here with a knife over his head and be like, nope, you have to do what I say. Where that analog isn't fully accurate, because as I'm growing, because, I took cutoff from you, but that was consensual. That was agreed. But as I'm growing, it becomes obvious to everybody that I'm a solo threat. And he can, in fact, turn and ward away my knife if he's not being attacked by both of you in the east. So we'll see what happens there. In the south, I convert San to a fleet, and I move AFI to KHL, which the purpose of that, ostensibly, what I told you, was that if Oman puts a fleet in Yemen and a fleet in GOY, which is the Gulf of Yemen, I think, then he'd be able to take Sal from you in the fall, and that would be bad for us, because he'd retain one of his centers and keep being annoying. Now, having an army in KHL was useful for other purposes, but we can get into those later. I also do a bunch of... I do a bunch of fleet dancing with Oman to try to grab his centers, and after the season, I sent him a message full of flowery language and compliments and calling him one of the strongest diplomacy players I've ever seen, which is mostly to try to get him to not, be annoying. I'm just trying to get him to step down and accept...
Die quietly, that would be...
die quietly, please.
I think I took the unit in KHL for the other intentions you may have had with it, rather than... Because I knew that I had Sal that I was just about to acquire, empty MSC, right next to KHL.
Yeah.
My holdings that are only temporarily in my possession is the feeling I'm beginning to get about those spaces. So, with this season, I think I think it does, start to become threatening to everyone that you might be on your way to somewhere we don't want you to get.
Might be having some ideas.
Yeah, might be getting some ideas. And
you guys are doing progress against Russia, and
yeah, we are still making progress against Russia. I'm attacking you now, though. I think.
Yeah, you decided that I was maybe too much of a threat, and decided to take Alb from me. So I can explain all my moves. So the hope here, I did not think that if I had to fight everybody on the board, I'd be able to get to and maintain 18. I could get 17 pretty easily, but I thought that Russia would be able to hold me out of one of his centers. Looking back, this is the moment where I should have taken Sebastopol from Russia, and that I would have been able to maybe long-term get into Krasnodar and pull out a solo. But I was being patient because I was hoping that Russia would accept that the army in Armenia was there, because Persia might put an army in Waz, and then he would threaten Baku. And that I would protect him from that.
In retrospect, if you had gone into Sevastopol here, you would have gotten into Kraz immediately.
Yeah.
And probably could have held it against our attack for the next year or two.
Would have been close.
Yeah.
And then in the south, my hope was that you would allow me to stab you before fighting me fully, which you didn't. That's why Al was moving to Alge, because I wanted to build in it and then march on you.
Yeah.
Yep.
I have this tingle on the back of my neck that kind of goes off whenever I'm about to be stabbed in the back. And I was getting some strong tingles there, especially in this region where I had nothing.
Where you couldn't do anything.
That I'm either about to be stabbed, or it's going to look so tempting that by next year he'll stab me. So I might as well throw the first stone. I wasn't for sure that you were going to do it right now. So that's why I moved Loot to Ban. Yeah. I figured if he doesn't stab me right now, and I can get into True, then I might be able to keep MSC and Sal and True.
Yeah. I was drawing up maps at this point to ensure that my moves would be correct. And the plan after this point, because I moved into MSC instead of True, because I figured I could destroy the unit in Sal, and from there I'd have a good shot at least 16. And I thought my thinking throughout most of this game was, if I can get to 16, I can probably force my way to 18, one way or another.
It's a good plan.
Also, you can see that Oman went silent and didn't enter any orders, which means that my orders look kind of dumb. Because I was hoping that he would be a cooperative dead body. But he wasn't.
He was a dead body.
He was a dead body, he was somewhat cooperative, I guess.
He's as dead as you can be. He's AFK.
Yeah.
But all the complex scheming, thinking about what he's going to do, what his last-ditch effort to stop you is going to be, and he just sits there.
He's just like, whatever, it's over.
Which, probably relatable to a lot of people, but not really the way you want to go out, because it looks kind of lame, but...
Also, I know that Shane was still working with me for at least this season, because he tapped IND like I asked him to. So that was a nice little gift from Shane to me. That didn't really make any difference, but a gift.
Yeah.
Yep. So now we have entered war. And in this season, my goals are to destroy your unit in Sal. My goal is to retain Qatar, retain MSC, take Sal, retain Boss. I'll get a ton of builds. I know I can't take back Alb. You can hold that if you want. I don't have enough units. So right there, my goal is just to make sure you're not going to sneak into any of my other centers and be annoying like that. And I am actually not intending to stab Russia right here. Not yet, anyways. Soon, but not now.
I wonder what I do. Wait, no.
Oh, wait, that was builds. So yeah.
Now it's the builds. Okay.
There we go. Okay.
I was thinking that I should be very focused on holding Alb from that position. Let's see. It looks like you got 2 new armies.
Yes. So the plan was to convoy one of my armies into Russia, and then the next season, if I successfully convoyed, I could force another center from him. Hopefully, at least hold one, and then from there grind him down. In the south, plan is pretty much the same. Take True, eventually take Sal first, hold my centers, and from this position, I'm going to eventually be able to take away Alb from you, because you can devote Per to defending Alb for this season, and you can then get Waz and devote it, but eventually I'll have 4 units bordering it until Russia's ready, and you'll only be able to sustain 2 defending it, because I'll be able to cut Persian Gulf. So the intention is to get it back eventually, some way or another. And also to fan out all my fleets across the Indian Ocean, like I said.
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like the fact that the sea spaces are so few in this game plays a big role because, well, we'll see as it goes on, but once someone has control of the oceans in this game, it's pretty difficult to wrest that control away.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can do it. It just requires a lot of trust between some not necessarily very trusting people after the history of the game. Well,
it requires trust and also a lot of maneuvering and time.
Yeah. So in this season, I guessed wrong with where Russia was going to be. I was thinking he was going to hold Sevastopol. In hindsight, the best move here is definitely convoy Sevastopol, because if he goes and holds in Sevastopol, I will not be able to hold Krasnodar anyways, because you can tap Armenia and then force it. So I should definitely have convoyed onto Sevastopol and held that. In the south, we trade Alb for Alge, which is annoying for me and something I did not particularly like the prospect of, because now you have a unit behind my lines being very annoying that I have to deal with all the time. But I do successfully get your unit in Sal destroyed.
Yeah.
And this is something that I acted with every time I entered orders. I was always saying, like, well, surely he doesn't think I'm going to be this stupid. So one of the things I did thinking like that is I just vacated Qatar. I just didn't put a unit in it. and I mean, I think it surprised you enough because you didn't move anything towards it.
No, I was not expecting that. I was focused on my own centers and on defending them. I moved Alb to Alge. I was thinking I might be canceling out your attack rather than taking a unit, taking a center from you necessarily. But either way would be a good result for me. So, but you offered a good offense here. I think it was just that this was also the moment when I convinced Qing and Russia that You are going to solo if we don't stop fighting.
If we don't all move everything over, this man is about to win the game. And they go, okay.
It was very effective. I'm very happy with the result. And look at that, like, seeing everything go south.
Yeah, that was about, I was outlining a map of the worst case scenario for me in this game of this turn. And I'm looking at it over here, and that is about the worst case scenario on my map. Like, the only thing Shane could have done that would have been worse for me, he could have moved MAH to GOB instead of to MUM. And if he had moved ASE to IND, he would have bounced me and would have really set me back in controlling the oceans. Apart from that, I thought that there was a real chance that you were going to move the Persian Gulf to OMN and then move ISF into the Gulf, and that would have also put a stranglehold on me.
Yeah, in retrospect, that would have been a good decision, although then I would have lost Alb and not gained any center back.
Well, if you could have supported it to hold with KHZ, and then you wouldn't have gotten into WAS this year, but I don't think it's a huge deal compared to gaining OMN.
If I didn't get into WAS, then Alb would be surrounded, and I'd be outnumbered there. It's tough. There were some payoffs that had to be made, but yeah, you get command of the seas here, and it is very important.
I'm glad to have it.
So then we have another retreats phase. My unit in Sal gets destroyed. Your unit in Alge has to pick a retreat.
I go to Bry, I believe.
Yep.
Yes.
And then you're trying to reclaim Alge immediately.
Yes.
Although
I expected to be kicked out of Alb anyways with the amount of troops you had around it and the amount of troops I had around it. So at this point, I'm focused on trading Alge for Alb back because that's better for me. I would rather you not have a unit in Alge. It's just not something I like very much because you can retreat into all sorts of places and it will require at least 3 of my units to get rid of.
And I think that the battle that's taking place at sea right now doesn't really... I don't think there's really that much to say about it. It's, you're advancing. It's we don't have enough fleets in the water right now to do anything and fight you properly. We're trying to position to do that, but it's slow, especially because all of Qing's units are armies, except what are now 2 fleets.
Yeah. For now, this is my moment to strike. The issue being that there are several layers of sea tiles between the centers. So it takes time for me to actually try to project power into India. It's very difficult. Yeah.
And let's see, I kept Alge for right now. So there's just one retreat, and it's Qing going to OMN, rather.
Yep. And then I get a nice little army in Jerusalem, which will help me to rein in Alge.
You really needed that. If I'd lost Alge just then, I could have retreated to Jerusalem.
It would have been very painful.
That would have been, I could definitely see that because then I'm right next to Cairo.
You could have converted to a fleet and go into Med if you wanted to be.
God. Oh gosh, that would have been, or even into the Red Sea. any of this.
So many things. I'm very glad that it stayed put.
Well, opportunities.
And then about right here is when I'm thinking I probably can't solo in this game. I don't think that this position is going to allow me to get to 18.
Yeah, I think I think that this was really touch and go in my mind for a while. I was really uncertain whether there would actually be a point where we could really stop you and start pushing you back. Because, it was entirely possible in my mind that you couldn't be stopped, or just as bad, that we would be stuck. Because, especially at sea, it just didn't seem likely that we would ever be able to... I mean, look at all these fleets in the south here. You have way too many, so even...
I accidentally self-bounced in IND, which is a mild annoyance, but doesn't really make any difference in the grand scheme of things, I don't think.
No, but... It's just, you have so many fleets you can barely keep track of them yourself.
It's like, we just get the Indian Ocean, guys. It'll all work out.
Yeah.
And then around Alge, I am, again, moving boldly and opening up centers to be bounced, and just trying to surround you at any cost. and destroy that unit. Because I was not a fan of that.
Well, I can understand that. Albeit that I was a big fan of that unit and wanted it to push through.
Be free, fly like a bird.
heroically make a great stand against the enemy.
You could be the first Persian to bathe in the Mediterranean since I think Khosrow the Great in the 600s, maybe I think it was 500s. So,
wow.
Then in the south, I take true from you because you try to convoy up to Kuwait to be annoying, and I predict and bounce you.
Man,
The second time I left Qatar just wide open.
I should have convoyed to Qatar. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just being crazy in some of these moves. It's kind of intentional, though. I figured if I was going to win at this point, I'd have to be pretty bold. And being a center or two worse off in the draw is not something I'm particularly afraid of.
Yeah, you were fighting very well here. I mean, it was... I knew that the only place where we could break through without a lot of time, was going to be in Russia, because that was the only place where you were not only were you outnumbered, but there were also just empty spaces up there. Like Bulgaria and Khan are empty here, and Wall, whatever that is. Wallachia, thank you. Wallachia is empty up there, and if we could break through up there, that's a pretty important region. That's our only way of really sweeping your legs out from under you.
Yeah, that was my Achilles heel. And then this outcome is much more to my liking. Of course, I get to take back Alb. I think, actually, you can explain your moves first, because I saw those moves and I was perplexed.
So I think first I recognized that I couldn't possibly hold Alb. And so I think the moves for Alb and KHZ and Isfahan I recognize they're all impotent moves. None of them can do anything right now. So I just set moves.
It's like if he does all these bold things again, he's going to pay for them.
Yeah, actually, I'm using Alb to tap Smyrna because I'm supporting Russia into Armenia, and I want to... Actually, I think that makes this land. Yeah, I think that it makes it impossible for it not to land in Armenia. Yeah. And I had told Russia, you should transform both of your armies in your home centers into fleets. And that way, like this is the only place we can succeed with our offensive, so we should devote everything to this.
I was not a fan of this idea of Russia having fleets.
I was a big fan. I was like, this is the only way it can work. And your Caspian Sea Fleet, Russia, needs to go be landlocked and become an army as soon as possible.
Yeah.
And then you can get that over to one of your other spaces that's connected to the Black Sea. Maybe make that a fleet. Given where that is, you couldn't possibly have too many. You need to control the Black Sea, and then you'll control Bulgaria, Constantinople, and then the sky's the limit.
Yeah. So I recognize that Armenia is lost, so I'm moving it into Alb. So it obviously, if I try to use Armenia to support into Alb, I'll probably just not take Alb this season, is my thinking, because you will support it to hold or whatever, and Armenia will be cut, and then it will be lost. So that's my thinking, and it worked out pretty well. Armenia was lost, and I did get Alba back, which was good, because it allowed me a build. In the south, I don't get to keep true this season, because you are mean, and you are coordinating with your allies and cutting my support, which is mean. But the fact that he's cutting my support means that I get into OMN, which I think may have been more important in me holding a line than getting true back. So in your position, I might have chosen to hold OMN instead of retaking true.
I mean, there were a few things we could have done better here.
Yeah.
One of which is that we managed to move Gobi into ASE. We should have moved Gan into Gob. I mean, this is just a waste. I didn't expect you would actually use ASE as the mover, and I thought I was just cutting your support.
I figured that I wasn't going to be able to hold ASE as a C tile in the long run if I also wanted to hold OMN, and I would rather have OMN than ASE by a mile.
That makes sense.
And also, I think I think in the focus on retaking True, it kind of shows that you're the one coordinating the moves in a lot of the regions because of the focus on let's get Persia's center back.
For a lot of the last few seasons, I was writing the orders. But yeah, there is a focus on getting Persia's center back. Look, if Persia, all of Persia's units are on the front lines. If we have to lose a unit, we should lose Qing's units.
Fair enough.
You got this useless army in Kaz, and this other useless unit in Del, and he needs to transform as many of these armies as possible, and it's just not happening very quickly. So
he's a little bit suspicious of the Persian initiative of Persia. Or not, sorry, Qing, you don't need an army. Don't need an army. Don't worry about armies. You don't need it.
This is the end, man. We have to throw everything we can at the Ottoman Empire, and then if we manage to survive that, then we can worry about Persia solo.
Of course. So I also convert Qatar to a fleet because I want the Persian Gulf as well. It's probably, I think it's the most important sea tile on the map. I think it's more important than Black Sea at this point. Because
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you take Persian Gulf, it's a very useful space for a lot of things. Although, admittedly, any support from there was going to get cut at this point by either you or me. But it can still convoy to like 10 different places.
Yeah, and it forces you to garrison a bunch of centers as well. Or if you had it, it would force me to garrison a bunch of centers, which would be very inefficient use of my units.
So. Here we see that my unit that was in Alp gets destroyed. I expected that. Felt like that was a worthwhile sacrifice. Not terribly unhappy about it.
I build a fleet con.
Oh yeah,
because I have some tactical ideas to use against Russia. Also, I believe right here is when I start whispering in Russia's ear and telling him, "Hey, I'll give you Constantinople and Bulgaria, and then we can turn on these Persian and Qing troops, and we can cut them down, and we can, maybe we'll kill Persia, and then we'll have a 3-power draw instead of a 4-power draw. Isn't that great?" And I've now learned that he told you guys about this idea, which doesn't surprise me too much, but it is kind of sad.
I mean, it's just vaguely.
I was like, I'm sitting here like, we could have a good time. I would definitely not try to solo again.
That sounds very believable. I like the way the word "again" is in there. That always makes it sound more believable.
If at first you don't succeed,
you'll never try again.
Yes. So I'm offering him stuff, and he's like, at first he's very like, I like this idea. So I assume we were talking one night, and I assume that he hadn't told you guys yet. So he was very enthusiastic about this idea, and he's like, "Oh, that sounds great. I would actually like to be bigger, and this sounds really good. This sounds like a much better situation than I'm in right now." And then he talks to you guys, and from then on, his messages are, "Yeah, yes, okay."
Oh, Russia wasn't doing a very good job as a double agent.
No, I was like, this man is not in on the plot at all. He's definitely not liking this idea.
Very unfortunate.
So this is where I'm starting to doubt my eventual victory, because I have 14. I have 15 in this position, and getting from 15 to 18 is going to be very hard right now. Because I need a
classic map, and this map is more difficult, really.
Yeah. I still thought I had an outside chance at tricking you and getting into Isfahan, perhaps. And if I got into Isfahan, I could top you like a deck of cards and get into Tehran guaranteed. And maybe Mas. Maybe I could have gotten into Mas as well, but that's hard. I don't know if I could have gotten any Russian center to this point. He's got a lot of fleets. Yeah. And a lot of armies.
He's really garrisoned the homeland. And
yeah.
He's got these two centers behind the lines that essentially that are fueling that. So I start to have some faith that will push you back here.
Yes, and I was entertaining some interesting convoy ideas. I was thinking about convoying MSC to India at some point. Was one of my ideas that I got. We'll see what happens with me and convoying things later down the line, but and then I can explain my tactical moves in Russia. I knew that he's going to take Black Sea, but I want to maintain control of Bulgaria for as long as possible, which involves not getting my fleet in Black Sea disbanded. So I support Constantinople into Armenia so that I can retreat Black Sea to Constantinople. And let's see, actually, this is the spring. I'm going to lose Bulgaria anyways, but
No, this is good stuff.
Okay, I think this was about the best moveset I could have had. I'm proud of it.
Yeah, these are good tactics. Good planning. And there's not that much to say on our end. Like, mostly I'm thinking about what Russia's doing. I'm also trying to, find my moment when I will inevitably break through and retake Alb, or we'll retake some sea spaces. But
so I destroy Russia's army and I retreat to Constantinople, and you retreat to KHL with your Persian Gulf fleet that I drove back.
Yes. Yeah, that's funny. It's lucky that space was open.
Yes.
Because then I can try and retake Persian Gulf immediately.
Pain. So then some more stuff. I'm guaranteed to lose Bulgaria at this point, but if Russia went with my ploy and decided to believe me, then I could have held on to it with bouncing him. I'm just throwing in orders to advance in the Indian Ocean because there's no downside to ordering Gulf of Yemen to advance. And I saw that Ching bounced himself in Hyderabad, so I ordered a support for Delhi into Hyderabad, just in case, just in case that'd be annoying. And I tried to convoy Alge into your south, but that got cut because you drove my fleet in Persian Gulf back.
Phew, yeah, that would have been bad.
Yes. That was my last gasp for a solo was that.
I think you played very well here. Like this, you're grasping for every opportunity. It's really the spirit of what we try to go for here.
Thanks.
But yeah, I think at this point, I think it was starting to look kind of like we would slowly but surely, but inevitably, grind you down.
This is where I looked for how can I hold them where they can't do anything. So at this point, my orders were going to be Khan to Med, Armenia to Khan, supported by Smyrna, and I wanted to get it back into Persian Gulf. And if I possess Persian Gulf, I can hold the stalemate in the Indian Ocean. You can't pressure Al because I can support it to hold with Jer and Alge, and you can't pressure Khan because I can support the hold with Smyrna and Mediterranean. And even if you cut Smyrna, you have to do it with Armenia, so you can't pressure me anyways. So I would have had a permanently holdable position, but I don't know if it would have been worth all of our times, especially given that I didn't expect you guys to go on any stabbings.
Yeah, I think that was not going to happen at this point.
Yeah. So this was just me walking up to stalemate lines, essentially, and ensuring that I was secure at 15 centers no matter what. And that's about it. I examined today every single center possible to take: Bulgaria, Sevastopol, Krasnodar, Isfahan, Hyderabad, and Mumbai, and none of them seemed particularly realistic with good play from you guys.
Yeah, I think at this point it was looking like we were more likely to start taking at least some ground from you, mostly at sea. Let me see. I think we would have we were going to get ASE, and possibly in from there. And
you couldn't get in from there because I kept in Yemen. You couldn't get pressure from 2 sea tiles.
Oh yeah, we would have to get into OMN instead, and then try to get into Goy or one of your coastal centers.
Yeah.
So it would have been a slog if we were to try and keep going.
The game might have gone for a couple more months.
Oh my god. No, I'm glad this is the final position. The game did not need to go any further. You proved that you were a juggernaut in your own right by yourself.
I was willing to try. Was this the final? Yeah, this was the final position.
Yes.
I believe. Yes, because Qatar was about to be converted to a fleet.
Oh, yes, that makes sense.
But it remains an army. I can send you my final moveset if you want it.
Yeah, that sounds like a fun thing to have. You're doing you're doing very well here in terms of just making good decisions as far as tactics.
This is what I was planning for the final screen. You can see it in your Discord.
Oh, I see. Yeah, you were gonna give up Armenia to move to Constantinople, and yeah, we were probably going to try and take Armenia from you at the same time that you're just walking out of it.
Yeah,
probably a good decision. And like you said, you can defend forever from Med. So that could be a problem if you can defend forever from that space.
We will never surrender.
That's sure there must be some crazy way to dislodge you eventually.
You would have to go to ATL, beat an Indian Ocean, then you could get to ATL and cut my support from Med. That would have been how you would take Constantinople.
This sounds like quite a journey.
Yes. Well, it was a well-played game, I believe.
Likewise, I think that the players who survived really deserved it. There's not to say anything bad about those who died, but I think we all kind of earned our ending here.
Yes, although I do have questions about Ching and his indefinitely holdable eastern corner position.
Yeah, I had some questions about that too. We've already given that feedback to the designer, and I'm sure he will add some more spaces so that it's possible to break up Ching a little bit better, or take away some neutrals. Probably some combination of both of those things.
Yes.
Well, my key question though, which has nothing to do with tactics, is did you like this map? I think you said you would play it again.
I had a lot of fun on this map.
I agree. I mean, which countries do you think are best and worst on it, in terms of which ones would be easiest to play with?
I definitely think I got a good position with the Ottomans. It might be a little too big to be very wieldy, big target on its back, but I'm not complaining. I think in this map, Ching is obviously pretty good for the defensive position, and I think that Oman is a really good power in this map and probably should have had more success than he found in this game. I think that the extra unit is a very, very useful tool to have, and that if he had played his cards correctly, he probably could have been, like me, but even more of a juggernaut.
I think those are very good points. Yeah, and I think that the countries you didn't mention are, especially India and Nejd. I think that those countries are kind of in cursed positions. I mean, Najd in particular only really has the likelihood of getting one neutral.
So I think the play for Najd is probably to sign some sort of agreement with the Ottomans and try very hard to convince the Ottomans to go north, including getting Persia to sign on to an agreement where Persia also goes north. I think that's probably the best play that you could make as Najd.
I think that would have been a good play, yeah. And I think, as for my country of Iran, I think that it was kind of middling, but I think there were some good opportunities for sure. I mean, I would probably have enjoyed being Russia or Qing or Ottoman a little more, but I would definitely have preferred Iran over Najd or India.
Yeah.
Like I said, some countries are possibly cursed in terms of their positions on this thing.
Yes.
Especially India having a fleet at the beginning, I think is completely...
It doesn't serve any purpose.
No, especially when you can transform later if you want it.
Yeah. There's nowhere for them to project power with that fleet regardless.
Yeah. But I'm glad you enjoyed the game, and I had a great time playing with you and with the other folks who were in there with us.
Yeah, it was a good time.
I look forward to your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoy these videos, like so many viewers who love the variant commentaries, I hope you will show it with a like, and by joining the roughly half of my viewers who are subscribed. And I also support putting your hands together for the thoughtful and generous people whose names now appear on screen, our wonderful patrons and translators. A special hand for King of Prussia, who made this video with me. Remember that you too can join the Alligator Army by clicking the link to join my Patreon in the video description to gain access to a world of exclusive Diplomacy Podcast episodes and occasional videos that are only accessible through my Patreon, as well as early access to all YouTube content. Until next time, Florida Man out.